On the show today, I have Mr. Will Foden back in the hot seat for the third time on the Tim Castle Show. He is the epitome of someone who's courageous and inspirational at the same time. And in this episode, we talk through Copenhagen Ironman, his first Ironman, but not his first test of endurance. This guy is someone that goes all in. I bloody love this bloke. He goes all in all the time in business and in physical endurance and in strength and conditioning and training and for his clients. But things didn't go according to plan on the Ironman. Even though he had done 11 months of training, things weren't going his way. And quite quickly on the bike, I say quite quickly, 50% into an Ironman, things started to take a turn for the worse. And because he's Will Foden, because he commits and goes all in and takes action, and that's his motive and that's his thing that gets him going, there was no way, no chance in hell he was going to quit. What do? Right? Do you start crawling? Do you start walking? Do you start talking? Will talks us through how he got himself through the rest of the Ironman when things weren't going his way. And they're not just talking about not going your way and you feel a bit rubbish. This is not going your way and then ending up 3 days in hospital afterwards. And the lessons in this episode, you can apply them to business. You can apply them if you're just not sure that you're really pushing yourself. Because there's really big lessons here about how you can take your business to the next level around doing the work and around actually not bullshitting yourself. Are you doing the work? Are you doing what you say you're going to do? Are you all in? Are you going to commit? Are you able to do whatever it takes, regardless of the circumstances that happen? That's what this episode is about, and that's what Will has very kindly agreed to come on and share. Next 30 minutes are going to blow you away. Listen up and watch the other videos of Will on YouTube. I recommend you watch them because they add more context to what we're talking about. Listen to this, watch the videos. You're going to see a man here that never gives up. Take it away, Will. Mr. Will Foden, welcome back. And it's episode 3 and we're very glad to have you here. Third time lucky on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, man. Always a pleasure. Obviously, the last half an hour has just been chit-chat between me and you, but we're sure we would miss everything else if we didn't start the podcast. So thank you very much, brother.
I know, we just had to stop our chat just to make sure we get this gold in the locker.
Must. Absolute must.
So how have things been? I know I've been watching your YouTube and I've been watching your Instagram, and over the last few weeks, you've been doing some very exciting things, but also some very challenging things that I think the viewers and the listeners of this show can get a lot from. But also I just want to hear about how that's impacted your philosophy, your values, your thinking. Like, talk us through it, Will.
Sure. For guys and ladies who don't know, nice to meet you. I'm Will Foden, owner of a company called the Stay Strong Collective. We're a peak performance service. We work around entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders, people that are looking to sort of elevate their physical, mental, emotional performance. Those who do know, I competed in my first Ironman. I used to be a professional rugby player, so I'm built like a fridge. I am not aerodynamic in the water or on the bike, and I run like, as I said, run like I'm a piece of wood. But I decided to go for one of the hardest challenges you can do, which is obviously an Ironman. Those who don't know, an Ironman, that's a 3.8K swim, 180K bike, and a 42K run back to back. We decided to go to Copenhagen, and I trained for 11 months for it, which was a experience in itself. I think a lot of people who are in the high performance space they don't give themselves the time and the space to think, and they actually struggle with their own thoughts. I was terrible beforehand. When I got into endurance, one of the things that I learned was how meditative it was, and actually how the word spiritual for me is nothing religious. Spiritual means about your mission and about you getting clarity and certainty in what you're doing. Doing a 3-hour run, the stuff that goes through your head is actually amazing for you to actually learn how to deal with and actually be at peace with. And I think a lot of the people in the high performance space are so quick, so driven, so attacking it all the time. They never give themselves place to actually have any form of reflection, any form of sort of download, or we call it an after action review, where you go over what you've done. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I got into that. I got into it because someone challenged me to it and said that this other boy was doing it who I couldn't let beat me. And it was time for me to do something different. So, which he didn't even do it didn't end up doing, which absolutely broke me. So going through the actual race, I think the biggest note, again, people who aren't Ironman geeks, don't worry, I'm not going to go into wattage and all this kind of stuff. I basically very quickly went over. I felt really sick during the race. I had COVID 2 weeks before, and I beat my swim by 20 minutes as a PB, and I was on the bike pushing really hard, and I basically started vomiting. Excuse my minging, but I inhaled somehow got stomach acid in my lungs, which caused fluid on one of my lungs.
That happened
So
at
I got
that point, right?
yeah,
Like
it happened.
early
That
on.
happened at 90K. I don't actually. Do you know what? I don't even know. I pretend it didn't happen.
But the fluid came in at you were
Yeah,
90
yeah. It
into
started.
a ride.
Basically, I started as I was being sick. I was retching so much that my lungs started to fill, because I had a foreign invader, COVID in there before. Any foreign anomaly, i.e., anything else that's not air, my body started to your lungs will produce mucus to try and get rid of it. And at that point, I didn't know. Like, I just thought I was sick, and I was like just thinking, I'm just pushing really hard, but I want to get a good time here. So I just carried on. And on the bike, I got my fueling wrong, which meant I missed. I used theirs rather than mine because it was for speed. Because it's like as soon as you're in that, because I wasn't doing it to beat anybody else. I was doing it as an exploratory exercise to see how fast I could go, nobody else. And I think that's the point to have, is a lot of the time, people in the entrepreneurial space or leadership space, they're doing it they think they need to do all this to prove to somebody else. Where I learned that the hard way through professional rugby, where this was very much a what if exercise. Well, let's just give it a go and try and do something that's totally out of my comfort zone and challenge myself to a point where I know I want to feel it. A friend
That
of
was your
mine, I met him
mindset.
on the week. Yeah. I'm a big. Why not? And I've always had that throughout everything in my whole career. Is like, I'm not a genetic freak. I'm not like an emotional hard ass or I'm not a Goggins who's like all in, don't care about anybody else. I'm gonna smash myself into like that. I'm very much like, I want to leave no stone unturned. I want to make sure that I'm trying to master myself on a daily basis. And part of, obviously, when you're looking at any form of sort of high performance, the physical part dictates the mental part, which should obviously massively dictate your emotional state and your behavior. My coaching company is based off my teachings and learnings and experience through all these different realms. And I'm always a coach who's like, if I've not done it, how can I coach somebody to do it? I can't. I coach Ironmen. I've coached an Ironman to the World Championships, and I coach others to compete. They're actually competing with me. If I'm not in the firefight with them, I have no opportunity to actually know what they're going through. So it becomes a maths exercise rather than an actual experience. Oh mate, I struggle. I struggle so much when I get off the bike and go for a run. Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. Your hips are locked up, aren't they? Yeah, exactly. So what you need to do, X, Y, and Z. It comes from not from. I've read it in a textbook, and I think a lot of people get this, that they're very good with the education, but they don't live up to expectation. And I think that's what I try and do throughout all the realms of my life, is that I lean into pressure. Like, we've had this when you came to, like, anyone doesn't know, Tim spoke on my immersion day or about negotiation, and we were talking about resilience and developing yourself from a self-mastery and self-awareness perspective. Massive inclination of no pressure, no diamonds. Like, and if I'm not under the firefight and I'm not pushing myself to a limit, which I didn't mean to push myself this far, but I want to see how far I am actually capable of getting to, not just mediocre. I want it's mediocre, but it's all me on me. It's not. I'm not trying to be an Ironman world champion, do it in 5 hours, whatever it is, and look like a pencil and have not have any life. I wanted to do this Ironman to prove a point that out to myself that actually you can do something that is so very, very, very out of your comfort zone. I'm a speed and power athlete to the bone. I'm not an endurance athlete at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the main sort of reasoning for it.
How because obviously you've done some endurance tasks, but like you've been up Snowdon, you've done the ultra marathon. I've seen you here in Singapore doing things with the weight vest on, where you're crossing the whole of Singapore in the heat. That's hard, doing that 50, 60K with a weight vest on. Like, this is not. You've even done your own simulated half Ironmans. Like,
Yeah.
how much more difficult was this Ironman in Copenhagen than the things you'd done before? Or was it, like, what changed? Or was it the fact that you were going into it to prove to you that you could do this to the best of your ability? Like, what was the difference?
I think when it comes down to perception of challenges, it comes down, you sync to the levels of your training. I've consistently put myself, there's a friend of mine called Joe Parrish, who I've only met a couple of times. I met him on the weekend, and he says extremity expands capacity. So which is when you're looking for exploration or to lead, there has to be a point where you push yourself that far. You are looking over the edge of the cliff going, Jesus Christ, this is actually, I've pushed myself here. I've had that throughout my whole career. I had that throughout my rugby career. This is one of the reason why if guys and ladies can't see me, I look at my face like a jigsaw puzzle. It's because I've had a long paper round and put myself in the dark holes of my face where everyone's feet are. Because in rugby, for me, I was gladiatorial. Like, I was extremely violent and aggressive. I wasn't the most talented, I wouldn't say, but I was willing to take myself to the next step because it's in my blood that I want to push to that. I want to take somebody or go to that place, which rightly or wrongly is been one of the best things about me. But it's also a curse because I need to be careful of where that goes. It's probably why the Ironman ended the way that it did, was because I refused to quit. And it's not. There's many things in life that I will stop doing because it's pointless. But when it comes down to my word, when I say something I'm going to do, my word is everything. And it's how I develop trust with myself. I think people think you have to go to levels of extreme to show off. It's not. It's a trust-based exercise. Can you trust that you've got more in the locker? And I always used to say this is nobody will go further than me, not because I'm more physically capable, but because my mindset has always been, if I say that I'm going to do something, and there has to be a point where I finish it. Does it have to be perfect? No. Does it have to be the fastest time? No. But if I say that I'm going to do something, I'll either do it, or if I know it's the wrong thing, is put my hands up and say that I've made a wrong decision and owning that decision. Those are the two sort of parallels that definitely work for me.
You weren't going to lose confidence with yourself for not completing it like that. You obviously, when you were throwing up and you knew you had was it the sodium poisoning or the sodium level?
Yeah. Basically, I took on a new carbohydrate mix, and I didn't have the same blend, and I couldn't take on sodium. So you basically, if you don't take on sodium, your body can't hydrate itself. So as I went on throughout the race, I couldn't take on the sodium appropriately. And two of the things that I was going to take that was going to help with that, they actually fell out my bag and I couldn't get them back. But obviously I'm in the middle of like, I'm going to win. I'm not win, but I wanted to come in 12 hours. And the times that I was hitting was meaning I was going to hit my target. Got off the bike and I came in at 5 hours 44, which was rapid for me. Like I would have come in at 6 hours 10. So I was super excited. But I didn't feel sick. I was just being sick, if you know what I mean. Like, I was just like, this is just my body pushing back on me. It's
for
okay.
90K from 90K onwards, for another 90K, you were basically throwing up, but not thinking, you weren't like in your mind going, something's wrong here. You're just more like, this is weird, but like whatever.
My rationale behind it was I'm pushing myself to an extreme. My body is responding with what he's trying to. When you're so stressed, your body gets rid of anything in digestive capability. It's called sympathetic drive. When you're like fight or flight response, your body doesn't want. That's why people get sick before matches. That's why people need to go to the bathroom. Like the minute because you're going to the gym and you know it's going to be a hard workout and you can't stop going to the bathroom, it's because of sympathetic drive. My rationale was that I'd taken on a couple of drinks that I didn't know. It was okay. It's only a bit of. I say in my head, it's a bit of sick. Who cares? Like it's just a bit of. Yeah. I'm retching, but there's worse things. I'm not feeling bad. I ran my first 10K sub an hour. Like I was at 56 minutes. I felt great. Like I felt good. The atmosphere was insane. So many people. And it's a flat course. Copenhagen's 4 loops. And first 10K, all good. Second 10K, I got to like 18K and I was like, oh, I feel absolutely horrendous. But just keep chugging, just keep attacking it. And I kept having it in my head, just keep attacking. I got to about 22K and I was like, I have to stop a second. So I stopped every aid station. I'd walk through it rather than run through it. And it would have been 24K, 25K. It was like someone pulled the batteries out of me. I had absolutely nothing. And I was in my head, I was like, quite emotional. I was like, come on, we got to go here. Like this, but again, rationale in your head is that I'm exhausted. I've just done whatever, 6 hours on a bike, hour and a half swim. I've done 2 hours running. I'm bound to be tired. Like I've never done this back to back at this extremity before. And it just got worse and worse. I just couldn't breathe. My breathing was literally down from my chest up and I couldn't understand why. And I kept being sick, couldn't breathe.
Were you
And
scared at that
then
point? Or was it, what was it? Were you not confused with like, where's the end? Where am I? Like you were rationalizing and yeah, I've done a lot of stuff here. You've
I
not, you've done some crazy stuff in your time. Like it's
yeah,
not like
yeah.
this is like you've pushed yourself before. Like were you not like the batteries are out? Like you thought you were trying to kick it into gear, like, come on, we're good to go. Like we sort of just basically like it doesn't matter, we'll push through, but like the
I know I wasn't scared. I was more pissed that I was taking longer to complete it because I was desperate to get in the hours. But it's because I was so focused on the end outcome. I just I trained and put my life and my heart and soul into 11 months of training. I've given up a lot to do it. Like I gave up a lot of time. I've given up a lot of like my business hasn't suffered, but I've had to really, really like other things in my life have had to be put by the wayside. And I think at that point, I was a bit more right then. I was a bit like, mate, you're just tired. We just give yourself a couple of minutes and you'll pick back up again. And I just didn't. And we ran with four of us. Brad, I coached him. Brad, I took to the World Ironman Championships. I was never going to beat him. Craig and Mark, who Mark's Brad's dad. So I was in my head, I was going, I have to make sure he'll beat me in the swim, but I've got to tag him on the run and everything. And Craig the same.
that's
That's all I
awesome.
had in my head was like, okay, cool. I don't know where anybody is. I've just got to keep moving forward. There was not a bone in my body that said stop. Like in relation to, I wasn't going to finish. I was like, I will literally crawl this shit. Like I am not going home without completing. I've just got. I'll be okay in a minute. Have some food. If I need to go to the bathroom, whatever it was trying to get an emotional anchor to go again. That just never happened. I got worse and worse. I'll jog, start being sick, have to stop. I'd walk, jog again, start. It was like that pattern. About 14K out, I had to walk. I just physically could not run, and I just didn't understand why. So for about an hour and a half, I was walking. I was absolutely raging. I've got my little cousin, videographer. If anybody needs one, he was so good at capturing the moment. There's pictures of me where I'm not in tears, but I look so sad and angry and just so. I didn't know where I knew where I was, but I was so laser focused. You on the video, you'll hear me. I'm just talking to myself, just saying, "Come on, you just got to keep moving forward. You got to
I
keep
know
moving, keep attacking."
everyone
And
should watch that on YouTube. Go on Will Foden
yeah,
on YouTube and just spend some.
thank you.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
crazy. Like I watch those over and over again because you can hear you just talk the way you're talking. It's right there in the moment, and you can hear
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's like you're processing it through your mind. Like you can just feel it.
It was just it was more verification that I wasn't going to quit. If I kept telling myself, it's just like anything, isn't it? We always talk around like how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. I've had that throughout my whole endurance training cycle. I just said to myself, this is all going wrong. Like something's really fucked up here. I have no idea what it is, but I am not quitting. Like unless I'm looking back is a bit extreme, but in my head I was like, unless I'm in the body bag, I am not going home. Like I am finishing this because I promised myself I was going to finish it. So yeah, I basically walked 14K, got to the finish line after it was 14 hours 51. I ran over the finish line. And the video you'll see, I'm swaying around, and I'm there in the middle of it. I'm going, mate, what are you swaying for? You doing this for Instagram? And I generally wasn't. My mate, Mrs. is screaming at a paramedic to grab me. Anyway, going to the tent, and my blood oxygen saturation's at 60%, where it should be at 95. I was blue. I had fluid on all, like my kidneys were not failing, but they weren't working very well. And I was cognizant. I could speak and I was fine, but my vitals weren't. So they put me straight in an ambulance. I went straight to A&E and ICU. Where anyone doesn't, my wife's pregnant, so we've gone in and she sat there. I know she's pregnant, so I'm obviously super like, this is so. I was like, this is so over the top. I don't need this. I just need someone. I need some food. I need to go to sleep. Took my vitals there. My vitals are running at 50%. So your heart and lungs should be at 60% capacity at all times to be for life. Mine were at 30. And they're basically telling me,
so you were
so
you were
you
50%
shouldn't be at
below.
100. Yeah. So you should be at 60% minimum for like a standard person to be optimal, according to them. And mine were at 30. Like my heart, they were frightened I was gonna have a heart attack. They said that because I couldn't breathe. My basically what had transpired is I had an exercise-induced pulmonary edema, which basically means I had fluid on my lungs so much, my lung collapsed like a wet balloon, so I couldn't get any air in it. So I was doing it with one lung, and they're obviously spouting stuff like you're literally, you shouldn't be able to have walked for 2.5 hours with 60% oxygen, let alone finish a race. I was on full oxygen mask. They were actually talking about putting me to sleep and putting me on a respirator because I was that bad. And obviously, you at that point where you're literally sat there in a hospital in your pants, where I have 15 doctors around me, all speaking Danish, not freaking out, but like they don't understand what's going on. I was very lucky that I actually had quite an understanding of physiology, because I was literally telling them, I wasn't telling them what to do, but I was explaining to them biomechanic, like from the mechanic standpoint, this is my rationale of it. You tell me if I'm wrong. Layman's terms, I was fine. I just wasn't. I basically was in bed for 3 days. I was on oxygen. I was on and my blood work was all over the shop. So they were frightened that something bad had happened. But after 3 days, it was like nothing had happened. I just got back to baseline. And it all came down to, I'm lucky I'm super fit, and that the zoomed in piece of like you could have a heart attack, you could have had your both lungs collapse and that kind of stuff. That was a small bit of a very big picture of one thing went wrong. And in an endurance race that's that big, that one thing can snowball into something massive. But I got asked like, why? Like, how did you finish it? Because again, I don't want this to be like you have to be David Goggins, and you have to be, if you've got like no knees left, you're gonna run with no cut. I didn't want. I was I was super proud that I finished, because it is like it's a big feat of physical fitness or whatever, and leadership. But more, I was embarrassed that it got to that moment of like I was literally fucked. Excuse my French. But a friend of mine, Simon Ferrier May, shout out to him, who he's climbed Everest. He runs marathons all the time. I put it on my Instagram just saying about what my thoughts were, and I didn't really understand how to articulate it. But he basically said that the reason why I finished was when everything was going wrong and the house was falling down and your back is against the wall. The only thing you have in that moment is to develop trust with yourself, and you have to know that you've got an inner being inside you that knows that it's got another level when you need it. And I've had this throughout my whole career, where when I've had my leg snapped in half and told I couldn't walk again, when I've moved countries and developed 2 businesses to what they are right now, to physical feats that have been not impossible, but people look at you like, what are you taking? I'm just a very stubborn dude from Brentford, West London, and I'm not genetically gifted, but I am extremely hard-headed. And I think that's the lesson. I've taught the guys and ladies who I work with, and the people that are in my, is like, it's not a case of go and do an Ironman to prove that you can do it. It's a case of challenging yourself to a point where you not many people actually know how much they've got in the locker. And that's what I think what I wanted people to take away from it. Not, don't go to an Ironman and do what I've done, because I promise you, going to ICU and not having a shower for 3 days is minging. Like, it's not fun. They wouldn't let me shower. That was the number one goal at first. Was literally I had to get my breathing up to scratch to go and have a shower, because they wouldn't let me in. Yeah, because they don't care what you smell like. You're in a bad position. So yeah, it was an experience for sure.
Mad, mate. This is why I had to get you back on the show, because just watching those videos, I mean, everyone should go look at Stay Strong Collective, but look at Will Foden on YouTube, because those videos, the way they're shot as well, they really go into the moment, and you do feel like you're watching something from Netflix. Like, it's like you can see the change, and you can see Will being Will under some serious pressure. And I think then that has a lens to, like, what you're saying is, you don't necessarily need to put yourself there, but if you do, there's also a good side of it too. And it's not, the good side isn't just to be like, oh, I finished an Ironman. Like, you knew you were going to finish regardless, so that was always going to happen. It was how it happened, and the fact that now you have other levels that are deeper in there. How do you think that's going to play out now for your business and your clients? Like, what do you think that's going to do for you, knowing that you've been in this position?
This was a prime example of people who are aspiring to do something that's against the norm. And it's weird. People say, well, obviously I'm an Ironman, But in my head, I used to be a professional athlete, and I'll never say that I did well in my rugby career, even though I did way more than what I was supposed to, more from a physical standpoint of I was told I wasn't going to walk again to playing professionally. I've had this throughout my whole life of like expectation of myself. And I think a lot of the time people get polarized by the beliefs they have about how far they can go. This is not you need to push yourself into a point where you can go to hospital to prove that you can do it. This is a case of, are you really at the edge of your capacity, or are you telling yourself that to protect yourself in relation to it? Because most of the things in business aren't life threatening. Most of the things in business are not actually happening. If you actually boil down your issues within business or leadership, it's usually the minor details that are quite quick to solve. It's just your issue is making a mountain. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I want people to sort of take that story and just think to themselves as like, this, am I actually struggling, or am I really struggling? Because I've got this thing in my head of like, entrepreneurship is literally like sailing out to sea in a rubber dinghy with nothing in front of you, nothing behind you. If you think this is going to be an easy ride, I promise you it's not. I have not made it, by the way, if anybody listens to this. I'm not $100 million Grant Cardone one course is going to make me $100 million. I'm a young entrepreneur who wants to develop and help aspiring leaders, coaches, high performing athletes develop the processes to actually be better and do more and leave somebody in a better place. That's what my company does. But I also know that I am leading from the front. I'm doing the do. I'm not giving people what I say. I'm not giving people lip service. I am in the trench with you. I'm in the trench with a helmet on, thinking, fucking hell, I don't know how the hell I'm going to get out of this. What I do is I back my systems of me, how I operate, what I need to do, align myself with like-minded people like yourself. Like, one of the best things I've ever done was it's not blowing smoke up your ass, but meeting you, because I knew when I read your book, I'm fluent dyslexic. I read that in a week, not because it spoke to me in a way which was, hang on, there are people like me. And I have the same with my company. Is I work with people like there aren't a bunch of weird people that want to push themselves and really get after it and do stuff that people aren't expecting of them. That is what the epitome of that race was, not how cool is my Ironman. It's like anything in sport. Once you've done it, you're on to the next thing. It's more the message is, this is going to be really hard, but why not? What if it goes right? Not yet. Mine was very unlucky, but what it does is it actually gives me a huge amount of kudos to actually talk about and actually and I'm going to teach all my clients who are doing any endurance event how not to do it the way I did it, what to miss, what are the pitfalls, because I've lived through it and I've gone through the harsh end of it, so I know how to. It's not this, oh yeah, cool man, you finished it in 11 hours 30, congratulations, you were really fast on the bike and you're the perfect runner. No. Mine was, I really went to the edge, and I did not mean to go. If I would never tell my mum that he said that. Not staring death in the face, but you are in a position where you are compromising your health. Like, if you're not careful,
pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what I want to get from it is give people a bit of perspective about where they're at, and realize that actually, are you actually putting yourself out there to be better, do more, and to challenge yourself to a position where you can be better, or are you just talking about it? Because if you're just talking about it, that's okay, because then you know you're talking about it and you have a choice. Have that choice. That's the difference. And I think that's what we want to do.
That's beautiful, man. And like you say, like, do you want to take the path that actually, you know what it requires? And if you've got the self-awareness, and literally your videos and you doing this is an example of business, of entrepreneurship. You're just watching it in the form of an Ironman, and then you see shit goes wrong. And that's what happens, right? You hit something, and cool. In this instance, it was just some sodium or some other little thing that just didn't go right. And you still had to get the goal and the job done. And how you did that. And yeah, there were repercussions on the other end, and luckily it was all good. But like, the point is you had other gears inside of you, other layers that you were able to kind of draw upon, and you just kept going, you kept putting it into action. It would have been very easy just to go, this is not how it's supposed to go. I'm just going to peel off here and go back to the hotel and chill. And like, that's not you, but it's also not how it is in business or entrepreneurship. You can't do that sometimes. And also, like, when you went and you commit to something in that way,
you have to back yourself.
That's what it takes, right? And this is it. Like, have you actually reached the end of your capacity, or is it just
Yeah.
a bit painful, or is it actually just really, really,
hard.
really hard? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Like
you're not wanting to do
I
the effort.
It's an oxymoron. Like, people think that that it's just about physics. This is why so many entrepreneurs and people who are like pushing that high performance aspect of their business, they get into tough physical challenges. People, you know how many, like, you know, people that own companies like swimming the channel and all this kind of stuff. It's not about swimming the channel.
No,
It's about doing something that is going against your, like, again, Goggins calls it your inner bitch, but whatever, like that whining voice that moans about doing something, you want something easy. That for me is I want to master myself, which is actually impossible. But what I want to do is be better every single day. And what that does, and then what that takes is actually learning around your actual belief systems. And are your actions speaking louder than your words speaking louder? Actions speaking louder than your words? Sorry. Do you do the do, or are you talking about doing the do? Because if you're doing the do and it's going wrong, we can figure it out. If you're not doing the do and it's going wrong, finger out of us and get it done. Like, because I think that's where I'm massively sort of aiming for people is to go, actually, do you know what? I know I've got another level here. I deserve better, but I have to work for it. And it's gonna be really fucking hard. But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And entrepreneurship is not mediocrity. If you want to be mediocre, go and jump on the hamster wheel and be bored. If that's what you want to do, or are you in a position where you want endless possibility? And I think that's what I want people to know is, like, I'm not, as I said, I am no freak and I am not perfect. And I have days where I literally look at the ceiling going, Jesus Christ, how am I going to get through this? One foot in front of the other, keep attacking and head down.
My man, that was so good. Thank you so much for coming back on, sharing that story, fresh from Copenhagen. Lots to talk about, mate. Really, really cool. Where can people kind of get on with the Stay Strong Collective?
If anybody wants to watch the videos, the Stay Strong Collective YouTube channel, best place to find everything is just go onto my Instagram at Will Foden. Onto my link tree's got loads of videos, downloads and things. Also, my website, Stay Strong Collective. I'm on there too, or LinkedIn is actually a really good place to find me. So if you have any questions in relation to mental, physical performance, or you feel that you've resonated with this story, or you're doing an Ironman and you don't want to do what I did, please lean in and say hello, because I'll be more than happy to tell you what not to do.
Nice one, brother. Nice one, man.
Legend. Thank you very much.